Hi, hello, welcome back. Let's talk about House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 6, Regent. We open with everyone dealing with the effects of last episode's battle. Colas is at Driftmark, where his home is now empty and lonely. A stark contrast from where we see him at the beginning of the show, where he was hungry for power, surrounded by a family, and full of vigor. Now he sits at Driftmark alone with lost ambition and passion. At King's Landing, the tone is similar, as Melissa's head is dragged through the streets. Sir Criston Cole is trying to attempt a similar display as Otto did in the beginning of the season as he parades around the dragon head to show the power and the strength of Aegon's crown. It, however, has the opposite effect. It shows the weakness of the Targaryen house. It makes the dragons, these mystical and worshipped creatures, seem weak, as one small folk states that they're nothing more than a piece of meat, which shows the shifting views of the small folk and also shows their remounting resentment they have towards the crown. They are struggling and hungry, which puts the crown in a very vulnerable place. And Cole and the crown as a reflection are unequipped to handle this war, nor the people. At Dragonstone, Jace is getting restless at his lack of action, showing his youthful desire to engage and prove his worth, which is common of the men and boys of this society. He decides that he wants to fly out to meet the Freys to request assistance. In this scene, it's good to see more of just Baela and Jace overall. With the Greens, we see so much of Aemon and Aegon in their active engagement within the war. It is interesting to see Baela and Jace take a more active role, especially since between the two youth groups, Jace and Baela came from a more caring and stable background, which informs some of their decision making, as their decisions are less chaotic and rash than the Greens. Moreover, Jace telling Baela of his plans to go to the Freys shows a level of trust that he has for her, which is in contrast from Aemon and Aegon, who are so divided and untrusting of each other despite being brothers. Later on, we also do get a scene between Baela and Corlys that I thought was very touching and defining of Baela's character, and also kind of sad in terms of Rhaena as she continues to be passed up by those around her. Corlys wants to give Driftmark to Baela instead of Rhaena, who his late wife was petitioning for. At Harrenhal, Daemon is attempting to create an army. He is trying to unite the houses of the Riverlands to wave their banners for Rhaenyra. He is struggling in particular to get the House of Brackens to join his cause. In a lack of foresight, Daemon gives the Blackwoods free rein to commit any crime that they see fit in order to bring the Brackens to heel and join his cause. Other than that, Daemon is still having his dreams, which one of his dreams of this episode involved his mother, which the meaning behind that dream is still kind of unclear. Likewise, regarding his relationship with Rhaenyra, it is still strained as he continues to ignore the ravens she sends to him. It appears that the strain may be encouraging his desire to potentially take Rhaenyra's crown, as he makes little quips throughout the episode that allude to as such. He wants to be called king instead of king consort, and is even saying and reinforcing that Rhaenyra does not have the full support of those around her. He believes that he needs to be there to validate her claim as a man. This all culminates at the end of the episode. The houses of the Riverlands declare that they will not join for Rhaenyra, as they see Daemon's actions with the House of Bracken as unnoble and disgraceful. I'm interested to see if this is completely the doing of the supernatural nature of Harrenhal that is causing some of his uncalculated decisions and thoughts, or if the disconnect that he has from Rhaenyra is causing that as well. He is alone, and maybe this alone time is causing a shift within Daemon's character. That being said, with Daemon's storyline, I want to see some payoff. His storyline and dreams seem very slow to me and don't appear to be actively driving the plot. The fact that Daemon is alone with no one from the main cast to play alongside makes his scenes seem very uninteresting and disconnected, as Daemon is not actively engaged with the developments of the other characters nor the war preparations. Overall, I'm curious and confused on where Daemon's character is heading, and I'm hoping to see a change of pace in the next episodes since Rhaenyra is sending one of her council to see him. Within the Red Keep, we see the servants scrambling to help the king. Aegon is alive but under critical condition. Alicent is distraught and terrified for her son while also being very, very suspicious of Aemond. She looks at Aemond with a sense of fear and hesitancy, as she believes that he has something to do with how Aegon got hurt, which is later on confirmed to her in the episode. This is the first time we've ever seen Alicent be caring or worried for her son. Normally we just see her scolding or being overall irritated by her son's presence, which is the beginning of a shift that we see in this episode within Alicent. With Alicent, I think she is beginning to see the terrible outcomes of her actions. We see her see the world that she built come crashing around her. Even though she doesn't seem or appear to be the greatest mother, as she has instilled and endorsed so many bad things within her children, she has also lived in a roundabout way only for them, her father, and a sense of duty. Now all those things are disappearing around her. Her father is gone. Her husband is gone. One of her sons is on the brink of death because of her other son, and her daughter has lost so much due to Alicent's actions, making their relationship strained. And the system that she has uplifted is now beginning to turn on her. During the council meeting to decide who will reign in Aegon's place as regent, Alicent offers herself as his replacement. She is swiftly denied, as Larys puts it so clearly. What would it look like uplifting a woman of her own as a response to Rhaenyra's crowning? And Aemond is again given the role instead. Whatever power Alicent had or thought she was going to gain has been lost. She thought that by uplifting the path of those around her that she would gain some sort of power too. She thought that their views on power would not apply to her, especially since she conforms and reinforces their power to others, especially other women. She thought that she was the exception, as evidenced by her even attempting to become regent, and then her being shocked when the men around her did not back her. Think about it. She got Criston Cole where he is. Larys, Aemond, and Aegon were also given titles in one way or another due to her help. She presumed that once Aegon was king, that she could control him and have a seat as a respected member of the council. Instead, she got what most people do when they uplift the patriarchy. Absolutely nothing. She was essentially disregarded the moment she was no longer useful. The moment she finally gave them all the power they wanted and helped them get to where they wanted to be. They cast her aside, and I think she's finally realizing that, as evidenced by the council meeting and that great, amazing zoom we get into her face where we just see the anger radiating off her when she realizes the position that she's in. Aemond is a very curious and compelling character to me, as we don't really know his motives, though in this episode I think we get a clearer picture of what they might be. With Luke's death, we saw and heard him speak about how he regrets his actions. With Aegon's accident, however, you can see Aemond's lack of care. He proudly carries around the dagger of the king and was quick to make plans as king regent once appointed. He has been wanting for the throne, and we get the impression that he feels no remorse over hurting his brother to get it. Daemon and Viserys had their issues, but there was a sense of loyalty and respect between them. Daemon would never do such a thing to Viserys as Aemond has done to Aegon. Again, this shows the terrible relationship between Aemond and Aegon. Likewise, this potentially highlights the cracks of the House Targaryen, as they no longer hold strong to family and unity, but instead they are fighting amongst one another. The destruction of kin and legacy for the sake of power for the sake of an Iron Throne. I wonder what Aemon's downfall and legacy will be, and what his full price to pay will be. Helena asks him in this episode if it was worth the price, which begs the bigger question of if any of this is worth it. Is the war worth it? Is Rhaenyra and Aegon's fight for the throne worth what happens to the Targaryens? Worth what happens to the dragons? Worth all the loss and pain put onto the realm and the small folk? Throughout this episode, we see Rhaenyra struggling with her place as queen. In a parallel that mirrors Aegon's, she is struggling with being useful and worthy of the throne. Those around her do not fully trust her capabilities and instead want her to act as a figurehead of sorts, similar to Aegon's council. She is riddled with insecurity and a sense of incompetence. She is realizing that she's unequipped to handle nor lead a war. She expresses these thoughts to Mysaris and Jace. Both conversations result in her taking new actions. She decides to send her housemaid to King's Landing as a way to start unrest within the small folk and draw them to her side. Additionally, she decides that she will look into finding other Targaryen blood that have fallen out of their line. These dragon seeds will occupy the dragons that currently do not have riders. I wonder how these two moves will fare. Does validating the dragon seeds have a roundabout outcome where it also leads to the demise of the House Targaryen? And how and when will the small folk rise up? Anyway, that concludes our recap/discussion. Let me know your thoughts down below. Bye. Bye-bye.